I'll be using a split screen setup, Claude on the left and ChatGPT on the right, so you can see both in action simultaneously. From generating blog posts to creating interactive components, we'll see how these features stack up. And trust me, the results might surprise you. Let's begin by creating a blog post about AI tools for non-programmers. I'll start by asking Claude to generate a blog post titled Top AI Tools for Non-Programmers. Let's see how Artifacts handles this. Look at that! Claude has produced a comprehensive blog post. It's even formatted nicely in Markdown. Now let's see how ChatGPT's Canvas handles the same task. I'll input the same prompt here. ChatGPT has generated its own version of the content in Canvas, formatted also using Markdown. Now let's try to improve each content by using the context menu options available for both Artifacts and Canvas. In Artifacts, if I select this paragraph, I get options like Improve and Explain. Let's choose Improve and specify that we want to expand a bit on this. The paragraph has been expanded, plus Artifacts has saved this as a new version automatically. However, Claude cut off the rest of the content since it remained the same. Good thing we can always go back to the previous version to grab the unchanged portion. Now let's try the explain option. This is handy if we want to explain a specific part of the content. Let's select this and choose explain. Immediately, it explained the highlighted portion in the chat window. In Canvas, if I select this paragraph for example, I get the option Ask ChatGPT along with several formatting options. Let's click on Ask ChatGPT and do the same for this. Expand a bit. The paragraph has been expanded, and just like in Artifacts, Canvas created a new version that we can go back to. There's no explain option in the context menu, but we can emulate it by using the same option, Ask ChatGPT. Let's select it and ask explain. And it explained it in the chat interface. What's great here in Canvas is the WYSIWYG editing features. I can highlight a text, for example this one, and choose to make it bold, italic, or even change the content type. Let's try heading 2. It automatically creates a new version. We can always go back to the previous version and restore that. Artifacts doesn't have those options available, nor we can edit the text directly in the Artifacts window. But there's nothing to stop us from asking Claude to change the formatting of the text by the improve option or directly typing it in the chat interface. Let's choose the improve option to do this. Let's say we want to make this a header. And there you go. Claude has indeed made the requested changes and created a new version for it. Now, Canvas has additional features that Artifacts don't have directly. Here we have a floating menu containing several shortcuts. There's suggest edits, adjust the length, reading level, add final polish, and add emojis. Let's quickly try them individually for completeness of this video. But I will not focus on this so much because you can check it out in my intro to Canvas video for a more in-depth discussion of these features. Let's try suggest edits. Looks like it's not working. Let's try to adjust the length. Let's make it at the shortest possible form. Now let's adjust the reading level. It adjusted the reading level of the content. We can always go back to the previous version here. Now let's try to add final polish. Looks like it is not working also. Let's try to add emojis. So 3 of the items, shortcut menus, doesn't work right now. But we can always use the chat interface here to emulate these shortcuts. For example, we can say suggest edits. It will highlight the portion of the content where it has some suggestions. We can click on the suggestion, we can review it and choose to apply or ignore and so on. Let's try add final polish. And it directly edited the content here, adding the final polish. And lastly, let's try to add emojis. And it's adding emojis where it's appropriate. In Artifacts, we don't have those shortcuts, but since those are just shortcuts, it's only for the chat convenience. We can always use the chat interface here to do the same. So let's try to suggest edits. And Claude directly edited the text, mentioning the reason or the rationale of the edits. We can also adjust the length. We can also add or adjust the reading level. We can also add final polish like we did in ChatGPT Canvas. And here we can see that it automatically adds emojis as well as part of the final polish. And just to make this complete, we can add more emojis. Both Artifacts and Canvas handle text creation impressively. Artifacts offer powerful context options like explain and improve, while Canvas provides intuitive inline editing and formatting and additional shortcuts for convenience. But creating text is just scratching the surface. What happens when we dive into code? Stick around to find out. Now let's generate a Python script to automate organizing files by date. Again, we're focusing on how Artifacts and Canvas handles this specific task. Generate a Python script that organizes files from a source directory into a destination directory, sorting them by year and month based on their creation date. So here's the script, and it looks solid. Of course, the only thing to know if this works is if we run it, but Claude can't run Python scripts natively. We can download the script or copy it and run it externally, but that is outside the scope of this video. I'll have a video on how to do that later, so don't forget to subscribe. For now, we can focus on the code itself to see if it makes sense, which I think it does, because it seems to be able to do what it's designed to do based on the code. Now over to Canvas, I'll create a new chat and use the same prompt. Canvas provides the code here, and like Claude, ChatGPT can't run, or Canvas specifically can't run Python script natively for now. So all we can do is inspect the code itself. And just like Artifact, the code generated by Canvas is well documented. It already has some comments, and it looks like it's also doing its job here just by looking at the code. But let's use the floating menu here to see if we can improve the code. So let's try code review. It's not working right now. Let's try port to a language and select TypeScript. There you go, it's converting it to TypeScript. Of course, to run this, we need to use Node.js, but let's assume that it runs and we just need to fix some bugs. So let's try fix bugs. It is scanning the code line by line and looks like it fixed some potential bugs there. There's a bit of change there, so hopefully it does fix some bugs. Let's try code review again. I just realized that I had to click this twice to make it work. So if I just click it like this, I have to click it again to make it work. There you go. There's some suggestions here. We can review and apply, or we can dismiss those suggestions if you want. Let's try the next one, add logs. I have a separate video discussing all of these functions or these shortcuts separately. So I'm just going through this one by one very quickly. So it added some logs by using console.log, and we can also add more comments if we want. Alright, whenever we do something, we select a shortcut here, Canvas creates a new version automatically. So although Claude doesn't have those shortcuts, we can also ask it directly here using the chat. So we can say, let's say we want to have a code review. Let's see what will happen. So it listed several review points here. So it didn't implement the changes immediately, and it's asking us if we want to proceed with the implementation of the changes, specifically the additional suggestions, which is nice. And then how about if we emulate port to a language? Let's see how well Claude does this. And looking at it, comparing it with the ChatGPT Canvas, it's almost identical. But it did converted it to TypeScript version. Although I noticed that it didn't create a new version here, it created a separate artifact because it's a separate language. So it makes sense. Unlike this one where we asked to review the code, it created a new version. So let's see if we can add more logs here, or add logs. We don't have logs right now. I will simply say add logs, just emulating what ChatGPT Canvas have here. Add logs makes sense. The prompt add logs makes sense, although it's a bit short. Claude prefers, or most of the generative AI prefers more concise prompting, but most of the modern models right now can understand even this short prompt, so it's okay. So it added several logs here. It uses separate function called log, unlike ChatGPT Canvas here where it uses directly the console.log. The Claude version is superior in this case because we will be able to replace this function in case we wanted to use a separate logging mechanism. It encapsulated the log function separately, so we can easily replace this. That's a great implementation there. Now let's try fix bugs. So if I say fix bugs here, I don't think it makes sense because if we review the conversation we had so far with Claude, there's no mention of any bugs. So what I will do, just to give it more context, is to fix potential bugs. Let's see. It is conducting a code review again to see if there are potential bugs. Again, the only way to see if there's a bug is to run this externally. So looking at the code, of course, we can, especially those seasoned programmers, can easily spot bugs just by looking at the code. But the only way to make sure is to run this externally. So it did created a new version with several fixes, I guess. We don't have opportunity right now to review the code itself, but looking at the changes between version 2 and 3, it looks like it did some checking, additional checking here to make sure that the directory, the destination directory exists. So if it doesn't exist, it will return, sorry, I accidentally pressed explain. If it doesn't exist, then it will return without doing anything else. Unlike before, it will try to create a directory, and then it will catch the error. It will also return. So let's try adding more comments. Let's say add comments. It created a new version, version 4, with more comments and documentation as well. ChatGPT Canvas didn't do that automatically, but Claude deduced that although it already had some comments before, when I say add comments, it goes one step further. It added some documentation as well to the function. If we go back to version 3, it doesn't have that documentation on the function. So it's part of the comments. So I guess Claude excels in code generation in this case. So Canvas excels with its coding shortcuts, though we can also emulate those using the chat interface in Claude. The inline suggestions looks nice. It literally highlights the portion of the code where it has some suggestions, and we can apply it easily. Let's try it. There you go. It changed that portion. Artifacts provide a solid code with comments right away, and it even goes one step further. So both features handles code effectively. But how do they perform when we step into web development? So this is exciting. Let's find out. Coming up, designing a landing page for an AI-driven course. Let's see how Artifacts and Canvas handles this. You won't believe what you'll see next, so stick around. I will prompt Claude to create a single page HTML with CSS and JavaScript for a landing page promoting an AI-driven coding course. So let's create a new chat, paste our prompt. Let's see what will happen. It is creating the HTML with the CSS, the HTML itself. I'm not sure if we'll ever use a script, but it created the script also. Here, there's a countdown. Wow, did you see that? Artifacts not only generates the code, but also renders the web page right here. I can interact with the code itself, with the page. I can click enroll. Of course, it won't do anything because it's not implemented. But the point is, Artifacts not only generates the code, but also renders the web page right here within the Artifact window. And it even has a countdown here. So the JavaScript code is working. This is very fantastic. We can always switch back to the code itself and to the preview. Now let's try the same with Canvas. So I'm going to create a new chat here. I will enter the exact same prompt that I've used with Artifacts, and let's see what will happen. It is now generating the HTML code. We can see the HTML code, the styles is being created, as well as some script as well. But that's it. It created the code but not render it. So that's the one point that Claude Artifacts excels over ChatGPT Canvas. Of course, ChatGPT Canvas is in beta right now, so we'll never know if ChatGPT will also add the rendering capabilities to Canvas later. But for now, what we can do, just to see if this landing page works or not, is to copy the code, and I will paste it in a ready-made code here, React project that I created before. I will paste the entire code here, and then I will save. So I have npm run dev running in the background, so that means I should be able to see the rendered page here. Ready? Wow, look at that. This is the first time I've seen this, and it looks fantastic compared to the page Claude created. I'm amazed on the output that ChatGPT Canvas created. So it's nice, but it doesn't stop there, because what we can do is improve upon what Claude did. So what we can say is, let's try that and see what will happen. So now it's starting to generate a new code, created a new version. One thing to note here is ChatGPT Canvas uses a background image. right away. If we examine the code, it uses an image from Unsplash. So I don't know how it decided to use that, but it looks nice. If we remove the background, maybe it will look like what Claude Artifacts created here. Claude did its best to make it better, but some of the elements here, like this one, is not showing because the font color is the same as the background of this section. And I guess some of the icons that were meant to be here is not showing. But still, Claude did its best to improve the landing page. So let's use the same prompt just to be fair. Let's see what will happen. Of course, since ChatGPT Canvas doesn't have a way to preview the changes, we have to copy it. Now it's done, we can copy it, paste it to the page that we have there. Let's see what will happen. Okay, so it did some adjustments, especially the background opacity there. I remember before it's a bit transparent, now it's a bit dark, which is nice. It created an improved version of the landing page. So to load it again, either I have to create a new page to see what's different or copy it over and paste it again there. So you see the struggle there. If we are prototyping, we are going back and forth between external tools like Visual Studio Code and ChatGPT Canvas to see what's changed. Unlike Claude Artifacts, we can ask the revisions here and see the changes right away. What I will do is I will create another page just to have some comparison between the previous version and the current version for Canvas. So single is the current version, single 2 is the previous version. So it did some adjustments there. So this is the original version, this is the latest version. It created a card layout versus one row formatting or layout, which is nice. Let me create a new HTML file just for this artifact created by Claude to see how it will look if we use a full browser for it, just to have a fair comparison. I already copied the contents. We can also download it, and let's paste it in a new HTML file. Then let's go back to our browser and access that HTML file. So it looks nice, but the picture of the student here is not showing, and also the header. Without the images, of course, it will look empty and inferior, but it still look acceptable, right? So we cannot do this that quickly if we're going to code it by hand. But Claude Artifacts and ChatGPT Canvas did it within a few seconds. So that's the point. So going back to our comparison, Artifacts allows for immediate preview and interaction within the feature itself, enhancing productivity. Canvas requires external viewer, but still delivers quality code. So you might be thinking, can AI help me create graphics directly within these features? Let's explore that next. Okay, so let's see how well these platforms or these features of Claude and ChatGPT performs when it comes to image generation. So again, we're comparing the specific features of Claude, which is Claude Artifacts, and ChatGPT Canvas. So we're not comparing the full features of both platforms. So I know ChatGPT has superior image generation capabilities, but let's just focus on Artifacts and Canvas respectively. So I will create another chat here in Claude, and I will paste our prompt to create a simple logo for our AI-driven coder YouTube channel with all the requests that we need here. So let's enter. So immediately we can notice that Claude uses SVG, and it did create the logo that we asked for. And what's fantastic about this is Claude previewed it for us. It renders the SVG code. So here's the SVG code, and just like the single page HTML that we saw earlier, Claude has the ability to render SVG images. Of course, design-wise, this looks like a crying chicken or a crying penguin, but it does include what we asked for, a play button and some representation of code, which is the greater than and less than symbol there. So this is what Claude Artifact came up with. So let's try ChatGPT Canvas. Let's create a new chat and paste in the exact same prompt. There you go. It also created that image, and it uses different ways. This is not SVG, I think, but if we open it, this is a Matplotlib chart. ChatGPT Canvas created the image that we requested to the best of its ability. If we use a different model, for example GPT-4o, then it will actually create an image. Let's try that. See, this is a real image, PNG image or JPEG image, but it's different from the Matplotlib and SVG format. So this is an actual image that was generated by ChatGPT. But again, we're not comparing it, the whole features of ChatGPT with Claude, only the Canvas feature and Claude artifacts. So we can go back to that chat that we are using before. Both tools created a simple logo. Of course, we can ask them to revise it repeatedly to get what we really want in the end. Let's see what we can do here in Claude Artifacts if we want to make this logo better. So I will simply say make it better. I will do the same with ChatGPT so we can see it simultaneously, saving time. Claude Artifacts created a separate version 2 of the logo, and we can see here that it improved it a bit. And ChatGPT Canvas also did something to improve the version of the logo that we requested. Both tools can render or preview the image effectively. But let's push the boundaries further. Can these tools help us visualize complex processes? Let's test that with diagrams and flowcharts. Let's create a flowchart showing the process of learning to code with AI assistance. So in Claude, I will create a new chat and I will paste this prompt. Let's press enter and let's do the same with ChatGPT Canvas simultaneously. Claude created a flowchart using mermaid syntax, and we can also zoom in, zoom out, make it full screen, and we can see it created the basic flowchart. We can even improve this like just simply by saying make it better. And while it's doing that, let's go to ChatGPT Canvas, and unfortunately, it didn't create the flowchart that we are looking for. It just outlined the steps in a text format, and also it didn't even use Canvas. What if we say use Canvas? So that it will explicitly use Canvas this time. Now it opens it in Canvas, but still it just produced us with a text-based flowchart. So this is not even a flowchart. This is just an outline, right? But looking at the Claude artifacts made the second version really better. So we can see here the start, assess current coding knowledge. There's a decision branch here, yes or no, complete beginner, and what to do if yes, what to do with no, and so on and so forth. So Claude rendered the flowchart within the artifact window. We can move it around, we can zoom in, and we can even improve it by prompting Claude to do the adjustments that we need. However, in ChatGPT Canvas, it doesn't create a flowchart. It didn't even able to preview it or render it. It just provided us with the flowchart in text format. We can ask it to make it better, but I don't think it will do much. It will just simply try to improve the text but not preview it. It says here that let me know if you need further adjustments or if you'd like a visual version. Yes. So maybe just my prompt is problematic, but let's give it another chance. Okay, so it recommended an external tool to visualize the flowchart. We're not going to do that here. We're expecting ChatGPT Canvas to visualize it internally or within the Canvas itself. So on ChatGPT Canvas, it provided the flowchart in text format, but we need extra steps to visualize it. Artifacts streamlines the process by rendering the diagrams within the feature, making it ideal for visual planning. Now, for the ultimate test, can these features help us build interactive components like quizzes? Let's find out. Now let's try to develop a simple quiz component to test AI knowledge using React. First, I will create a new chat and I will prompt Claude to create a simple React quiz component that asks 3 questions about AI with multiple choice answers and displays the score at the end. So let's enter and let's do the same with ChatGPT. So now Claude and ChatGPT is generating the code on its own, and let's see what will happen. This will surprise you, so please stick around. There you go. Did you see that? So just like single-page HTML code, Claude Artifacts has the capability to render individual React components. So we can go back to the code here and see the preview of that code within Claude Artifacts window without even running a separate tool. Without even downloading the code and running it and scaffolding it, it creates a React component which we can interact with. So let's try if this works. So what does AI stands for? Artificial intelligence. Let's Let's click next. Yes, it works. Goes on to the next question. Which of the following is not a type of machine learning? So I know all of these are type of machine learning, and this is not a machine learning type. But I will say here this one just to see if the scoring is working. So what is the name of the AI model that powers ChatGPT? I think it's GPT, Generative Pre-trained Model. So let's finish. There you go. I have a score of 2 out of 3, and we can even restart the quiz. Let's head over to ChatGPT Canvas and see what it created for us. Unfortunately, although it's not really that unfortunate, we should be happy still that it provides us with the code, but it doesn't have the ability to preview the code itself within the ChatGPT Canvas. So what we can do is copy the code and use our external tools like Visual Studio Code to be able to preview it. So I will create a new JSX file here. So for example, this is a quiz, so I will name it quiz and then paste in the code that ChatGPT Canvas provided. So in the index HTML, I will rename this as quiz JSX. And let's go back to our browser and try to run it. And it looks like it's not running properly. So what happens? We can go back to Visual Studio Code. We can rerun this. Okay, so I made a mistake. Sorry. I should not. So this is a blooper. I should not have to remove main JSX. So because that's the main JSX here. So instead, I will replace what's inside main JSX. So I will import quiz component here, replacing the app that is there originally. Let's see. There you go. We can refresh and it doesn't look nice because probably the CSS is not complete. But if we take a look at quiz, the style is messing up. But let's see if this works. So what does AI stands for? Which of the following type? Machine learning, supervised learning. And I will intentionally answer this incorrectly. So I will choose Google instead of OpenAI. So you scored 2 out of 3 and there's no other way to restart this without restarting the browser session or the page itself. So you can see the difference. Claude Artifacts was able to create a very good code here, previewable, runnable, interactive, that we can improve upon. So we can improve upon this by, for example, add 2 more questions to make it better and make it better. I'm going to expect that Claude will add 2 more questions and make the UI better. So let's see what will happen. For ChatGPT, perhaps we can ask it to make it better by using CSS class or CSS styles within the component itself. So let's give ChatGPT Canvas a chance. So it did create the styles there and we can copy it and see what will happen. There. So, but the code is still not working well because of this text is not visible. And you can see that even though I have enough room here, there's a problem with the layout. So it's very trivial compared to Claude Artifacts where we can see the result here. We can start the quiz and it added the timer. Let me just select whichever I want there. And then here's the score. And we can further improve on this later on. There's another surprise for this video, so please make sure to stick around. But for now, we can see that the component for Claude Artifacts works flawlessly. If we want to make some change, we can prompt Claude to do what changes we need and it will do it and even show another version or render the new version right within the Claude Artifact window itself. However, ChatGPT Canvas doesn't have the ability to preview the code on its own. So we need to leave the ChatGPT Canvas window and go to an external tool like Visual Studio Code like we did. There's additional steps to be able to see the changes the ChatGPT Canvas made. With regards to this, I think Claude Artifacts wins 100%. So considering these capabilities, which feature aligns better with your development needs? Do you prefer the integrated experience of Artifacts or the code-focused approach of Canvas? I'm sure the answer is obvious, but still, it depends on your use cases. But here's something interesting. Claude Artifacts allows you to publish and share your creations publicly, even letting other Claude users remix them or improve upon them. This feature enhances collaboration within the Artifacts ecosystem. So I have set up my screen here to be a split screen again, but this time I'm using Claude for both of the sides. Remember the interactive quiz component that we developed earlier here? Let's see how we can share it with others and collaborate using artifacts. So I'm using a different window, a browser actually. I'm using a different user for this side, the left side, and a different user at the right side. So let's first navigate to the finalized version of the quiz artifact, which is version 2 here. In the lower right corner, there's a publish button. I'll click on that to make this specific version public. So I will click publish and copy link. So the link is copied and I can paste it in here in my other browser. So it will show a warning that this is a user generated artifact. We can show content and then you notice that it immediately runs that artifact and I can interact with it like before. So imagine this is another user you shared with your friends or to your family. You'll be able to show them what you did before, right? So this is really exciting. So you can see here, there's a remix artifact here. But before I show you that, let's see what will happen if I pass on the link to someone without Claude account. So let's use an incognito window, paste in the link, and it will show the same warning here. I can click show content and I can still interact with the Claude artifact quiz here, even though I'm not logged in. But I cannot change anything here. You see the chat itself is not included, only the artifact with that particular version. So the first version is not published. If we try to remix artifact, it will ask us to log in. So let's close this incognito window and use the version or the window that we have a logged in user. So let's remix artifact. Okay, so we can see here that I'm not sure if you caught that part where it says what will happen if you remix the artifact. We can go back to it later on. I think it's here. Yes, it's here. Remix artifact means taking this artifact with you in a new chat with Claude and evolve it with your own unique spin. So remixing an artifact requires an Claude AI account. I click this remix artifact and it shows here. Immediately it recreated the artifact and notice that it provides 3 suggestions, 3 ways that we could remix this AI quiz component. So we could add difficulty levels, we could implement leaderboard, we could include multimedia elements. So let's try adding the difficulty levels. So I will just simply say 1. So now Claude artifact is generating the code for that implementation following the suggestion number 2. It created version 2 and let's see what will happen and how does it look. From here you can see that it created an array of questions for easy, medium, and hard, and it's now creating the code itself to use those array. Let's wait for a bit and hopefully it will provide us with the full code, because sometimes Claude artifact will just give the changed portion of the code. If that happens, you can simply say implement number 1, make sure to provide the full code. It's done, and you can see here that at the first step of answering this quiz, we need to select the difficulty. Let's try medium, start the quiz, and we have the remaining time of 90 seconds. We can select arbitrarily here and we can restart the quiz as before. So one thing that changed is the difficulty selection. So from here, even though I'm a free user, I was able to remix an artifact shared to me. What I can do from here is I can still further improve the artifact, taking note of the limitations, or publish this artifact again, sharing it to somebody else. So let's try that. I publish it and then I will paste it here and see what will happen. There you go. I was able to see the exact component in this particular user. It's still the same and I can still remix the artifact. And you can see the collaboration feature here. We can share it to our friends. We can remix the artifact, do some changes, be creative, even make this into a whole app or quiz if that's your thing or that's what you want. I will create a video for that later on. But for now, what we can do here is go back to our previous chat window. And what I will try to do is try to introduce an error. So this is a bonus tip. What happens if this is not working well? So it so happens that Claude was able to generate what we are asking for it at this session, on my particular session, without any flaw, without any issues or bugs. But I will try to introduce a flaw that I know didn't work for me before. So I will ask it to add icons from Lucid React, which includes GitHub icon. So I know GitHub icon will not work. So let's see if Claude will be able to deliver on that. Hopefully it will not self-correct and create a customized GitHub icon. So I can see in the code here that it did use a GitHub icon from Lucid React. So this will fail. So let's see. I will show you another cool feature of Claude Artifact when we see the error. Hopefully it will provide us the complete code so we can isolate that error. As expected, Artifact failed to load because GitHub, probably because of branding issues, is not available anymore on Lucid React. So let's click on this. Try fixing with Claude. This is a recently added feature in Claude Artifact, probably not a few weeks ago. So let's see what will happen. I always stumble upon this error when I'm working with Claude Artifact. That's why sometimes I explicitly say use a different or a custom icon for GitHub. Instead of the branded GitHub logo, it will use a generic logo like a code or something else. So in this case, it uses a brain icon. So it does works, and without click of a button, I was able to fix the error regarding this artifact. So it still works without any issues. So if you're working on projects that could benefit from collaborative input like educational tools, interactive components, or shared documents, Artifacts provides a seamless way to involve others. But both platforms are continually evolving. Claude is enhancing its models, with the upcoming Opus 3.5 model promising even more capabilities. ChatGPT is also advancing, with features like advanced voice mode, enriching the user experience. So while we focus on specific features today, it's important to recognize that both Claude and ChatGPT offer a broad spectrum of tools that can cater to different needs. The choice ultimately depends on what features aligns best with your workflow and project requirements. So I encourage you to explore these features yourself. Until next time, happy coding!